on the Helplink Show this month, we are going to be talking with Nicola Hampson, who is she's a mental health advocate, and she's also a Sea Change ambassador, and she is also a Green Ribbon campaign officer for Galway. And she'll be talking to us all about the Green Ribbon campaign and how they have been trying to and succeeding in reducing the stigma around talking about your mental health and being open to listening to somebody else who's talking about their mental health. Then we will talk with Michelle Kerrigan from Grow, and they provide group support all around Ireland, the 26 counties in Republic, and they hopefully I'm going to be getting a lot of interesting information for you about how you can get involved with those groups if you feel that they would be a benefit to you. And May is Green Ribbon Month, and what that is you'll see people going around with a little green ribbon on their lapel or on their jacket, t-shirt, whatever it is, wherever they put it. I saw some teenagers last year, they had them on their backpacks. And basically what it means is that you are open to talking about mental health, and that you're opening to talk about your own, I suppose, and you're also opening to talk about, as I said earlier on there, to listen to somebody. And to be there for people who are maybe experiencing some issues for them when it comes to their well-being and their mental health. So as you know, in Helplink, we provide a lot of counselling and therapeutic services, and we have always been behind the Green Ribbon campaign, and so you'll probably see us out in the streets as well, helping out with that. And so we haven't done this for a while, but just to put an offer out there that if anybody has experiences anything from this show, from the content of the show, or they have any questions, or they have any things that they would like to have talked about on the Helplink Show, they can get in contact with us and just go onto our website, helplink.ie, and you'll find all the information there about how to contact us. And look, we'll talk about any issues that might have come up for you in a completely anonymous way. Perhaps you have some issues that you'd like to talk about for your kids, that come across for your kids, and or significant others in your lives, family, etc. And you can pose that question to our counsellors and therapists, and we'll get back to you on the next month's show, and as I said, completely anonymously, and maybe give some helpful hints and tips. So that is what's ahead for this show, and hope you enjoy it, and looking forward to it. Now in studio, we're very lucky to have Nicola Hampson, who is with a mental health advocate, and she's also with Sea Change. Good morning, Nicola.
Good morning.
How are you?
Very well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me on.
Not at all. It's our pleasure. Can you tell me a little bit? I suppose one of the first things that we talked about before we came on air was the term mental health advocate, and then with your work with Sea Change. Can you start with what does being a mental health advocate mean to you?
Okay. How did I get to be a mental health advocate? I have a bipolar diagnosis, and I had my first episode when I was 25, and unfortunately, through a whole load of for a whole load of different reasons, I didn't actually get a diagnosis until I was 40. That then made me very aware how important having the right information about mental health was, and how important it was being able to talk to people to get that information.
Okay.
So as part of my recovery, I then started talking about my own story, and people gave me very positive feedback and said that it was useful hearing it from a person who had experience, as opposed to it just normally being maybe a clinician or a member of a mental health team. So I started doing that. And then I was approached to become a Sea Change ambassador, which basically means if there are any media opportunities, either around my diagnosis, which is bipolar, or in the location of Galway, then I would cover that media opportunity on behalf of Sea Change.
Right.
So today I'm here in association with Sea Change to talk about the National Stigma Reducing Partnership, which is what Sea Change is.
Okay.
And one of its main components, which is the Green Ribbon campaign, which is held annually every May.
Can we go a little bit more into Sea Change? And did you know the background of why Sea Change was set up and what they currently offer, that kind of thing?
Okay. So Sea Change was set up just over 7 years ago, with the sole intention of reducing stigma around mental health. And stigma is the prejudice of people's views or opinions about mental health that then have an effect on everybody else within society.
Right.
Sea Change don't offer mental health services, for instance. They they're not a peer support network. They are focused primarily on reducing stigma. They have a number of other projects, one of which is Headline, which works to counter negative reportings around mental health in the press, and that they do a lot of research then around how mental health is reported and how to improve that. So they have a number of different projects that are ongoing.
Yeah. So you mentioned a piece there around the headline stuff with the press and that kind of thing. A bugbear that I have is when they use the word commit, and with alongside suicide in the press. Now, the Irish press, as far as I'm aware, are getting much better at not putting the word commit in, because it's not an illegal act. Yes, it was many years ago, but it's not an illegal act, and the connotations and the negativity of that kind of word. Is that kind of what you're talking about when you're talking about?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, and that would also be an instance of stigma as well. And we know how powerful language is, and that all of the terminology around mental health is all negative. Loony, schizo, all of those terms, they all have negative connotations. Yes. And actually what we are now much more aware of is that it's about mental health wellness. And through any period of time, we have periods where we are mentally well and we have periods when we are mentally not so well, just as we have with our physical health. So it's much more around mental well-being. Yes, of course, when people have mental health difficulties, they are quite obviously more pronounced and more evident. But actually, we all encounter mental health issues and conditions.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's another bugbear I have. They're all coming out today. The bugbear I have is that you constantly kind of see in the press and that kind of thing, 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 of this, 1 in 5. But everybody at some stage in their life their mental health is going to be affected by some sort of an issue, whether it's grief, whether it's bullying in school, something like that, where it's everybody is going to experience mental ill health at some stage.
Because what people are now more aware of, because of the changes in society and the way we're living our lives now, we don't have the same coping skills. In the past, and again, I'm going to generalize, but in the past there were stronger community structures. Everybody lived in the same village and didn't really move around so much. The church was a great support for an awful lot of people. A lot of those supports don't exist for people anymore. We are truly global, and we all are expected to stand on our own 2 feet as individuals. It's less about mental health difficulties and more about mental health wellness. At any particular time, all of us will experience periods of mental well-being and periods when we're less well, just as we do with our physical health. We're not in perfect physical health for the entirety of our lives. and minding your mental health. Whereas traditionally in the past, you would go to the doctor and you would be prescribed some medication and you would be sent on your way. Today we now know that the most effective way of supporting somebody when they're having periods of being unwell is that they need to address not only medication but also diet and exercise. And the other thing is around connectedness, being connected. And man is a social animal, and we need to have that ability to connect with each other and to share and to support each other. And that isn't as prevalent as it once was.
No, that's very true. Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why people say, volunteering is so beneficial, not just for the organisation that you are supporting, but for the individual in contributing and building self-esteem and self-worth. All of those things all have a massive impact on improving your mental well-being.
Yeah, the effect of volunteering has definitely been seen. We did a piece about that before as well, and just getting back and involved in society in some way can have such benefits. You mentioned there about medication and exercise and looking after yourself. And there's also then, I think we've probably moved from that community basis to where talk therapy has come in now, and talk therapy becomes quite huge now, and that's a great thing because people are able to engage with a therapist or a counsellor in a way that they would engage with their GP in the past. So it's that kind of slow reducing of stigma around attendance of talk therapy and counselling, which I feel is a really good thing. Now, there's still a lot of work to do, and that's why we have campaigns like the Green Ribbon one that you're here to talk about today. So can you tell me a little bit more about Green Ribbon? What's that about? And
so the Green Ribbon is exactly what it is. It's a fabric green ribbon that you wear as on your lapel. Right. And they're given out every May. There is no charge associated with them. It is purely for people to wear in recognition and support of mental health awareness. Right. And the idea is if you see somebody wearing a green ribbon, that they are approachable to have a conversation around mental health.
Okay. I wear them every year. And as do all the volunteers and staff in Helplink. Have you ever had any feedback that could be kind of scary for somebody to be saying that they're open to talk about that and wearing the lapel? I mean, I could understand, because for me, I'm obviously quite happy and delighted to talk about my mental health, as are you, and that kind of thing. But for somebody. For somebody who might be a little bit hesitant about that, can it be a little bit scary? Do you get that kind of feedback?
It can, and it's an age thing. So the year before last, I distributed 2,000 ribbons in Galway City. I actually had to stop because we ran out of ribbons. My idea was to hand them out on each Saturday in May, which is what we will be doing this year. Okay. I wasn't available to do it last year, but in 2017 we handed out 2,000. And
is that mostly in the city centre?
Yes, there was a number of volunteers. We had about 10 volunteers in total, and it was we made a little pitch on Shop Street. Yeah. And the interesting thing to me was anybody under the age of 18 knew immediately what it was, came forward, took them, put them on, and I could see them walking back up Shop Street later wearing them.
Oh, excellent.
The adults maybe were slightly less reticent. And initially, when you approach people, they think there's going to be a charge, which there isn't with Green Ribbon. So as soon as you said no, it's free, a lot of them took them. Brilliant. So I think there is definitely a lot of work that's going on in the schools, and that we will see that there is a spearhead of the next generation who are going to come forward, who are used to talking about their mental health and their emotions much more than we were. Yes. And that is all in the pipeline, and they will have different expectations on what is normal and what is acceptable around mental health, different to where we are. Right. And the Green Ribbon for me is something that kind of maybe helps bridge that divide a little bit and helps open up conversations.
Okay. Okay, and so the Green Ribbon campaign, you were saying it's been going for how many years now? It's
About 7 years.
7 years, and they're all volunteers that are giving out these ribbons and that kind of thing. Generally, are they?
Yes, they are.
Behind the campaign, and they'll pretty much be in every major city or town. It'll be available.
Yes, we Sea Change partners with a number of other organisations. So Boots and all of the railway stations, you will see that there are events going on at the railway stations, and there will be boxes of green ribbons on all of the tills at Boots.
Right. Brilliant.
So it's not just volunteers. There are organisations that also fully get behind that you can access green ribbons that way.
That's brilliant. The train. You can get them on the like when you're getting your ticket. They'll be kind of there or in and around there, or will they be representatives?
They'll be on the platform. They'll be on the concourse.
Okay.
There'll be banners and hoardings, and you won't be able to miss them.
Okay, brilliant.
So
yeah. That's really good. Yeah, 'cause that's really getting in the public sphere, isn't it? Like, besides the street stuff, because I mean, you could be on the streets for a couple of hours one day a week, but if constantly in the train, people are going thousands of people every day. That's very, very good. Have you noticed or gotten feedback over the years about the campaign and its effectiveness?
yes, I mean, people come up and talk to you while you're standing there handing out the ribbons.
Yeah.
And for me, that engagement and actually having a conversation, you know, when somebody says, what are you doing? What's this about? What's it for? You know, for every person that was not aware before we had the conversation, that's one person more that,
Exactly.
you know, is now part of the gang in helping reduce the stigma.
Yeah.
And I see it in the fact that people want to know, people want to be informed, because, you know, 1 in 4 is the figure, which means everybody will come across somebody that's probably part of their immediate family who will have some mental health difficulty. So it is really something that we should be able to be open and embrace. And for me, you know, the last 3 or 4 years that I've been involved, I've definitely seen a very small shift in more people getting involved and the conversations being easier. And the other big improvement that I have seen is the attitude in moving towards the recovery model that the HSC have.
Okay.
Now, the HSC obviously are the major providers of services for those when they get into crisis and they need immediate services. So the recovery model, I alluded to it but didn't call it out by name, which is this holistic approach that it's not just about clinicians.
Yes.
So the recovery model now says that service users need to be part of the decision-making process and around service improvements for the services that are being delivered.
Right.
So the best people to know about what services are effective are the service users.
Of course.
And the HSC adopted the recovery model in pilot about 5 years ago, but it's really now been taken up in the mainstream.
Okay.
And 2 years ago, the HSC established the mental health engagement division within the HSC.
Okay.
And one of the key objectives of that, which they are now doing, is setting up local forum so that service users have a direct opportunity to have their voice heard in terms of what improvements they want to see, and that those views and those actions that they're calling out for are then fed directly into the management teams of the HSC, because there is a mental health engagement area lead for each CHO, and they sit on the management teams.
Right.
So again, you know, things are happening from the inside, from within the HSC, and also externally, you know, through the organisations like yourselves and all of the others that are doing all the good work around the whole mental health space. And
like you mentioned earlier on there as well, the schools, it's very important to engage our young people, and even children as well, so they can understand and communicate what's going on for them. I think that's one of the people are saying, oh, there's such a huge rise in anxiety in children and this kind of thing. So actually, it was always there. There's a lot of them are able to vocalize it and put words to how they're feeling, instead of keeping it down and not being able to communicate. So I think it's really, I think there's been a very big change. It's been incremental, but a very big change in the past So that's definitely in the past 5 years, where it comes to that, and I think you're seeing that, as you mentioned, with the teenagers. They're starting to be able to definitely communicate, and they're happy to say, "I'm not happy today." And here's the reasons why, because it's got to be tough as a teenager. I know, I remember my own teenagers, it's very, very hard. Your brain is going 90. But if you're given the vocabulary and the time and the patience by someone you know, a family member or a friend, that kind of thing, it can make all the difference.
Peer support is invaluable.
Yes.
And being able to have a conversation with somebody that you trust is very important. But having said that, then some people find it easier to talk to someone where there is no emotional link. You mentioned, counselling. So I think, for me, the message is one size doesn't fit all. We need a range of services for the range of people that are going to need them, and you need to be able to have lots of options because we are all unique. So my bipolar diagnosis, if there was someone sat next to me with a bipolar diagnosis, that we're still going to be completely different. Our experiences that have got us to that point, how we deal with it. There's a whole load of things that actually make each of us unique. And that's really important not to lose sight of that, because it means there is no wrong or right answer in terms of how to deal with it. It's just about being human.
Exactly. So the Green Ribbon campaign, this is going to be going on all month. So people should, if they're going to wear the on lapels and that kind of thing, it's for the whole month. It's not just one day.
No, it's for the whole. It's for the whole month.
Great. And if you mentioned that people can get them in train stations, people will be able to get them on the streets on some of the days. Was that just your experience that everybody out on a Saturday in cities, or will that be countrywide? Do you know?
No, that's something that I'm personally organising just for Galway City.
Okay.
And we'll be on Shop Street each Saturday between 11 and 2.
Okay.
So if you're out and about and you see us, come up and say hello.
Brilliant. And also in boots, as you mentioned. And then can you, if people are interested in maybe volunteering and helping out, is it too late for them to get involved?
No, not at all. They can contact me directly. And my mobile number is 086 792 9171. And if they just want more information around Green Ribbon and Sea Change, the website is www.seachange.ie.
Okay, great, and lots of information on there, and that's great that it's not too late. I might sign up myself to do a Saturday here and there, and that's brilliant. Thank you so much for all that information, and it's been very, very enlightening, and hopefully a lot of people will come up and chat to you and your supporters over the next month.
I hope so too. Great. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Nicola. Bye. Well, it is the Helplink Show, and it is May, and during this month there is a lot going on when it comes to mental health and when it comes to looking at reducing stigma and basically making the world that we live in a place where people can feel free to talk about what's going on for them. I thought we might invite Michelle Kerrigan, who is the CEO of Grow, in to have a chat with us. So Michelle, thank you so much for coming on this morning.
You're welcome.
And can you tell me what Grow is and where it came from?
Right. Grow started in Australia back in 1957, and it was started with Father Con Kyo, who unfortunately found himself in a situation where he was experiencing serious mental health issues. Right. And you've got to remember, back in 1957, there was no recovery model as we would know it today. Right. And the way he was treated was through hospitalization and ECT treatment. And the issue that he had when he came out of hospital was that he couldn't remember how to say Mass. And this obviously was a very frightening experience. However, whilst he was in hospital, he also met up with other patients who were experiencing similar situations as himself. But the only place that they could go to gain any sort of community support was AA. And they did go to AA, not because that they had suffered from alcoholism, but because they really felt that they needed other supports outside of the hospital.
Okay.
And it was from their experience of being involved in AA that it brought the group together to look at that model and see how they could shape it into a recovery model for people with mental health issues.
Oh.
And that is where our recovery program has been born from. And it continues. The same program that was developed in 1957 is the one that we continue to this day.
Oh.
Obviously, there have been modifications to it, but ultimately it is the same program, and it is based on cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay.
And I suppose when you look back in 1957, this was very revolutionary, because this was something very new in the community, and very much recovery focused, very much looking at the individual, their own self-experience, and sharing their what has worked well for them, but also in a very structured way. And that is the way that the program continues to this day, very much focused on tasks,
right,
so that you can take small steps to make small changes. And it is about changing attitudes and behaviours towards mental health issues, and also finding support, but also engaging with others, because, as you know yourself, Lachlan, people with mental health difficulties can feel isolated, either geographically or within their family unit, in the workplace. They can feel very isolated, and this actually makes situations often worse than they actually are. And on top of that as well, there's a whole area of stigma with regards to whether or not, particularly in the workplace, whether or not you actually discuss the issues with your colleagues. Do you discuss it with your manager? If you do, does that open other challenges for you in the workplace, such as, will that stop me getting the promotion that I'm looking for?
Sure.
Or, will I again be isolated and people kind of looking at me in a different way?
Yes.
So there are many challenges that people with mental health face. But I think the recovery model goes a long way in enabling people to empower them to have a voice and to speak about their own mental health issues, but also be part of a bigger movement of influencing change in mental health.
Right. Can we go back a step and the recovery model? Can you give me like a brief kind of synopsis, kind of like what does that entail? What does that mean? What is the recovery model?
Yeah, the recovery model for us is that we look at the whole person, and some of the key areas that we would look at is the whole area of connectedness to others, and within a group you are connected to other people who have self-experience of mental health issues. So there is a connectedness to that group. But also, when we look at connectedness within the group, we're also looking at connecting people back into their own communities through social activities, and developing and trying to normalize what the average person would do on a weekend, or have a cup of coffee, go to the cinema, etc. So it's connectedness to the group, but also connectedness to the wider community. That might be connecting back into your family, connecting back into your workplace, connecting back into your community, and being a full citizen in that. We also give people hope, and that hope is very important, that there is hope of a recovery for that individual. And I must stress that people's recovery is very different. There isn't one single formula that will explain recovery, because we're all different. We all have different experiences, and we all have different support systems. So the one size does not fit all. It is the individual's hope for recovery. We also look at, because of the fact that people can become isolated, their whole identity can change.
I see.
And we give that hope that their identity, that they can reconnect with their own identity, and maybe formulate a different type of identity as well, because looking inwards on themselves and developing other strengths and key skills that they possibly didn't even know existed within themselves.
Right.
So we look at that. We give them meaning in life, meaning to their own life, meaning for the future. And we also empower people and enable people to make the changes that they require to make a change in their lives. So it's a program that is filled with hope, but it is also, it looks at the tasks that you need to do, because you do need to work on yourself. And you have to invest in yourself if you want to make those changes in your life.
Right.
But we also support those individuals through that recovery process.
Yeah.
And once recovery is beginning, and that there is kind of personal growth, we do develop other skill sets, and we try and develop their leadership skills, which is very empowering to the individual. And obviously through that, they want to give back into the organisation. So they take on different types of roles within the organisation, and which is really very, very powerful. And it is what I would always say, it's kind of like a butterfly. The transformation is just so beautiful.
Yeah, it sounds like a very comprehensive and inclusive program, and I can only imagine how people that are having issues, that they that once they are able to gain that self respect, let's say, and confidence, that it's a lovely model that they actually start giving back then to others.
It is, and it's a very powerful model. And one of the, I suppose, strongest pieces within the recovery program is people actually sharing their own testimony.
Right.
And this is where, if you're somebody new coming into the group, this is where hope is given. Because if you are listening to somebody's testimony and it resonates with you, and this person that's giving their testimony is sharing where they are in their life now and what life was like before they came to Grow and where it has led them to. This is so inspiring for the new person coming in, and it gives them hope that they too can do it. Yes, it might take time, but I will be supported in this journey. And yes, I may have little slip-backs, but that's okay. That's part of my personal growth and my learning, but I will have better supports to hold me in that space and to bring me forward.
Yeah, and so I'm going to bring you back again. So you mentioned about the father. What was his name again? Sorry,
Father Conkyo.
Father Conkyo. So that started there in 1957. They helped develop the program, and this was in Australia. So it started to basically spread across Australia, and then
it spread across Australia, and then it came to Ireland in 1969, because another priest, whose name escapes me at the moment, unfortunately, but he brought it to Ireland because he had also engaged with the program in Australia. And the first Grow meeting was held in 1969 in Athea. So that actually means that we are celebrating 50 years of recovery in Ireland this year. Yeah. So which is a milestone in the organisation's history. So, but that's where it originally started, in Athea in Limerick, and it obviously spread then throughout the country. And currently, as we speak today, we have approximately 120 groups right around the country, in all the 26 counties across the country. So, and on average, we would have about 800 people per week attending our groups.
Great. And
ranging, their age profiles are ranging from young adulthood into 65 plus. And it's interesting to note that, the different age profiles, there are different phases in your life development. And, most people will actually link in with us around the 25 plus age profile, because that's when significant changes in their life is happening. They could be contemplating marriage, career development, and issues that might have been there for them when they were younger are actually, surfacing, and they're finding it difficult then to progress in their own life, and it's pulling them back and isolating them from others. So that's generally when people engage with us at around the 25 age group. We do have younger people, obviously, but this is where significant changes in your life is happening.
Sure.
And then there's other phases in your life where maybe as people get older, their partners might have, serious illness, are no longer with them. Family members have moved away because they're, for work, etc. And again, we have the development of the isolation. So there's different phases, life phases, where people will actually connect in, where there are significant I suppose, pressures within their lives.
I presume retirement is also one of those big ones.
Absolutely, it is. And sometimes you see where people, have reached retirement, have maybe led very successful business lives, and suddenly their plans have all changed because maybe their spouse has died, and the plans that they had planned together won't be fulfilled. And then there's the loneliness of that. Their family has grown up, they're married, possibly not even living in the same country. Neighbours maybe have moved away. So there's this isolation, breaking down of the community pieces for them.
And there's also the fact that when you've constantly had your brain working, and then suddenly, bang, you're not working anymore, and your brain has nothing to do essentially really beyond maybe picking up a couple of hobbies and that kind of thing. So you really at that stage, I presume that's a big area where people need to get out and socialize and become part of groups like that if they like grow, if they're feeling this way.
Absolutely, because when you've led a life that has been, that work has been a core piece of your life, your identity to some degree is gone, because you have been identified because you have had a certain role in a certain workplace, and then what is your meaning in life then? That all changes as well.
And your social circle changes as
social
well.
Circles completely change as well. And, you're looking at yourself in relation to your own self-esteem, my value, what is my value in life now? And there's a lot of things that can be harnessed, through people being at an older stage of their lives. And we should all tap into that, because they're a fantastic resource. And,
exactly.
So
you have sorry, just to cut across there, but so you have within the groups, it's actually a mixture of ages, or do you...
We have a mixture of ages, and it's interesting because you would imagine that perhaps, it would be better to have different age profiles of groups, but in actual fact, having the different age profiles within the one group is actually very supportive, because there is the wisdom of the older person. There is, the looking forward of a younger person, and those two pieces coming together can be very, very powerful, and a lot of learnings on both sides. It's not just there's learning on the younger person's side, but there's also a learning from the older person's side, and they can, in some cases, become like a mentor to the younger person. So a lot, and new relationships develop, and new learnings, and sometimes very different and new skill sets can be brought into the group as well, because it's amazing the amount of talent within the groups. It's mind-blowing.
Can you give me I don't know how you describe this, but like I want to kind of basically demystify the whole situation when it comes to being part of a group within Grow and within AA and with all that kind of thing. But I'm speaking on behalf of Grow. Okay, so I want to join a group. What happens?
There's actually no referrals required, Lachlan, at all. So, which is very good, because that means that there is no barrier to actually accessing the service. And the other thing that can be a barrier for people is cost. So our groups are free of charge, which again should not be a barrier for people. So. We do have full listings of all our groups right around the country, and the times and the venues. All that people need to do, the first thing they need to do is really to get themselves to the group on that particular evening or morning, whatever the time may be.
Yeah.
And for the first 3 meetings, people just, if they wish to contribute to the meeting, that's fine, but they don't have to.
Okay.
They can just be part of it, be there, be listening to get an understanding of how the actual group works. There will be certainly a very warm welcome from other GROW members and the facilitators that we have who are highly skilled. And one thing that we always have after our meetings is a cup of tea.
Okay.
And this is a social piece so that people can, talk about other things that are going on in the world or in their community or whatever. Because the other 2 hours have been spent on looking at their own issues. So now it's time to move on and get into a different space where you are communicating with your fellow man at a very different level.
Yeah.
So it's a mixture of both, and then with the social aspect of it that we refer to it as the 12th step. That is again getting people to socialize once a week, twice a week, whatever the case may be. It depends on each group.
Okay.
And the purpose of that is to get people out into the community. But again, it's not about focusing on their own issues. It is about doing the everyday things that everybody else does in life.
Right.
And so that gets them away from focusing on the issue that they're experiencing at that particular time. So, and then we build upon that into regional weekends and then national weekends. So it ripples out so that they are developing new friendships.
And during the group work itself, is that facilitated in any way?
Yes, it is. It's facilitated by our area coordinators who are highly skilled in relation to facilitating groups. But that said, they will take a role whereby they are there to facilitate but not take over the meeting.
Okay.
Because ultimately the meeting is for the GROW members themselves. If needed, the area coordinator will interject if there's something that that needs maybe more explaining or whatever.
Right.
But ultimately we are trying to get people to take ownership of the group. It is their group.
Yeah.
But we do have trained and highly skilled facilitators at those groups as well.
Okay, and if say an issue comes up within the group, one of the members maybe needs some extra support, or if the facilitator believes that they might actually be in crisis, what happens then?
If somebody is in crisis, say for example, if somebody has suicidal ideation, the area coordinator will actually, first and foremost, try and establish what supports they currently have at home. And for some, there may not be supports at home. But the area coordinator will get the person into a safe space, whereby they will put in a plan for that individual. So, for example, maybe a GROW member might say, well, okay, I will ring you tomorrow at a certain time and I will check in with you, or we will go for a cup of coffee or whatever.
Right.
So there is a plan put in place. If the situation is serious enough and severe, we will obviously get other responses in and perhaps maybe accompany them to A&E.
Okay.
If that is required.
Yeah.
But hopefully we can, hold it in that space and that try and get the person through that moment, through that time, to get them to the other side where they're in a better place, where they can actually, be more in control of their thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. Brilliant stuff. It sounds like a lot of amazing supports there. You mentioned there regional and national events and days. Can you bring me through maybe what that means and what would happen with that?
Yeah, the regional weekends would be so. For example, in the Western region, the counties Galway, Roscommon, Mayo. There would be a regional weekend whereby members of the various groups in the Western region would go away on a weekend. It's usually Esker every year, and there they would come together, and this opens up new relationships, because up to now people would have just been in their own group This gives them an opportunity of meeting other GROW members in other groups within their region. Again, over the weekend, there would be approximately 2 testimonies given by other GROW members, and that opens, the whole discussion, and there could be different experiences as well from that. We would also have other, say, workshops around, say, mindfulness, rap program. We'll always have a creative space because we have found that many of our members are very creative, either in the role of creative writing, art, music. So we will always have that space there for them. And we will also give leisure time, downtime as well, because it's important that people have opportunity and time to socialise within themselves. And we'd always have some sort of a music that on a Saturday night, etc. The national weekend is, you could say, it's the same again. However, this time it is groups from all around the country.
Yeah, wow.
So, and like last year, we had over 240 people in the Athlone Radisson Blue Hotel. We were full to capacity, and that has been the same every year over the last number of years. And hence we've moved the national conference this year to the Mount Wolseley in Carlow because there is more capacity, and being the special year that we have, we feel that more people will want to come to the actual national weekend as well. So there are supports, all through from the time you step into a group. There are many opportunities for development and moving towards other leadership roles within the organisation. So, for example, you could become the organiser or the leader of your group. Right. You have the opportunity of developing skill sets to go onto a regional team, which is a regional committee. Ultimately, you could actually become a board member, supporting the mission, vision, and the goals of the organisation.
Wow.
So it's very progressive.
Very progressive.
Very progressive. Yeah. And it depends. Like some people are just happy to be within the group. That's okay. Others want to develop, and that's perfectly fine. We meet people where they're at.
Yeah. So this has been, as you said, we're working very well for the past 50 years. The way you talk about CBT, etc., and rap and that kind of stuff, it seems to me that the program itself is constantly being looked at and how it's provided. Am I right with that? About current research and that kind of thing?
Yes, absolutely. And we do constant evaluations of our groups, because obviously we want to ensure that people right across the country are receiving the same quality of group work. And that's very, very important to us, because, and there is an acceptance that groups do dip at certain times, because if a new person comes into a group, the dynamic changes. And if somebody exits the group, the dynamic can equally change. So we're constantly looking and monitoring our quality of groups, but we also do a national survey each year, and it's a voluntary survey for our GROW members, and we're very, very thankful that many of them actually do participate right across the country. And this looks at the changes that have occurred for the individual over the last 12 months, and it looks at areas such as their connectedness to family and friends and significant others. It looks at their own identity. We also ask the question as to what they're experiencing. So, for example, it could be anxiety, depression, schizophrenia. So we get a flavour as to what people are presenting with. Obviously, the age profile is important as well. We also look at whether they're urban, suburban, or rural.
Right, I was going to ask
which
that.
Is really important. And, some interesting facts came out of our most recent survey that a significant number of women are actually living in rural areas. I would have thought that it would have been mostly men, but in actual fact there's a significant high number of women living in rural areas. And also that roughly 17% of those surveyed have never been hospitalised for their mental health. And the number of people, or the percentage of people that haven't been hospitalised over the last 12 months was considerably high. It was around the 70%,
Right.
which is really fantastic. So that means that their relapses are less.
Yes. Yeah.
And obviously some of those that are coming into the service, they may have had a relapse in the first 3 months or 6 months, but as the longer they're in the group, it appears that they're less likely to have a relapse.
Right, that's
so which is
fantastic.
hugely significant.
Yeah.
And there's a wealth of information we glean from that survey, and we're thankful to our Grow members for participating in it and to allow us to kind of see the areas of recovery that are taking place for individuals. So we do monitor it from
constantly evaluating.
Evaluating the program, and also our leadership course as well. We're reviewing that now at the moment as well to make it more meaningful to people.
Right.
And all of this actually works towards reducing stigma as well, because I mean we are coming into the month of May where we're trying to get the population to be talking about their mental health, and to open those conversations. And, if you're empowering people to talk more about their mental health, that goes a long way to reducing stigma. And I have to say, over the last number of years, I've seen significant change in attitudes towards people that have mental health issues and those that are talking about their mental health. And that's lovely to see, because we can talk about our physical health and we're more open about it, but it's really nice and refreshing to see that we can just turn around to a colleague and say, do you know what, I'm not really feeling great today, I'm a bit depressed about whatever, and it's okay to talk about it, and whether you're male or female, and work like this needs to continue because we need to be more open about our mental health.
Speaking of that, for 2019, besides your amazing amount of groups that are going to be going on a continuous basis, are there any projects besides, I suppose, with the national conference is the next big thing for you guys, but is there anything else that you'd like to tell the listeners about?
Well, we're actually we're starting redevelopment of our website, which we're excited about, because we've done a huge amount of analysis of our website, and we feel that we do need certain things that are to be on our website, and we acknowledge that. So we are hoping that by September, when we're having our 50th anniversary, that we will be in a position to launch our new website.
Great.
So just watch this space. We hope you enjoy it. We're also, as you were talking just slightly earlier about changes in our programs, we are actually undertaking a review of our current program, and we hope to be in a position maybe to launch a new version of the Grow program. Now, there is a lot of work involved in that, so we're hoping that it would be possible to do it at that time. We will have a 50th year magazine as well.
Okay.
So all of this will be exciting for us.
Lots of stuff going on for you. The website is the URL. How do people find you?
We're www.grow.ie, and on the website, people can find a list of the groups that are available in their own regions. It will also give the venue, the time, and the directions to get to those groups. You don't need to be referred to the actual service itself. You can just turn up on the day. If you do want to speak to somebody regarding how the groups work, you can contact us on 1890 474 474, so we can give you more detail as to what you can expect from your first group meeting.
Okay. Actually, just before I let you go on that, one of the questions I had in my mind as we were talking was, do you have to have had a hospital experience to join a group, or does it, is it if you've had a mild issue, or is there any specific criteria about your mental health and your journey that you need to have to join a group?
No, absolutely not, because some people can be just struggling with life, they could be just hit a bad patch in their life, and have never been hospitalised or have never even gone to the GP.
Right. Okay.
And they just could be struggling, and they just need that little bit of support, get them focused on what is really the issue. So no, people do not have had to have any referral, hospitalisation, or any contact with GPs or anything like that. Brilliant. Because we do have people coming from all spectrums. So some people have been hospitalised. Some people are actually attending psychiatrists, psychologists. Others have never engaged in any of those services but are struggling. Okay. So it goes right across the whole breadth of what you call mental health, mental ill health. It goes right across the whole spectrum of it. And just another thing that we actually do, Lachlan, is that we do provide educational programs into the community as well. Engaging the community in understanding their own mental health, which goes a long way to reducing the stigma that is associated with mental health. And we also deliver programs into the workplace. Again, trying to encourage employees and employers to have that conversation with either their colleague or their staff member, especially around times where somebody may have had stress, or they might be out on sick leave. And they need that support coming back into the workplace, and how to actually give that support and have the conversation.
Very, very important. And all that information, if a community group or a business wants to find out more information, they can go to grow.ie again? They can go to grow.ie, or they can contact us directly. If it's within a region, they can contact the regional offices, and they're also up on the website, the contact numbers. And if again, those are all free of charge as well to the public and the workplace. That's amazing. That's brilliant. Fantastic stuff. I unfortunately can't keep you any longer, but I'm sure we'll get you back in again at some stage on the Helplink Show. Michelle, thank you so much. Really appreciate that, and I have certainly learned a lot myself about what goes on with Grow, and I very much appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Lachlan.
Wow, look at the time. It has gone by so quickly after talking to both Nicola and Michelle there from Green Ribbon and from Grow. I've learned loads. Hope you have too. And I hope that you have a really good May. It's great to see the sun back, and it's great to have a little bit of nicer weather again. But remember, if you're ever feeling that you would like to talk to somebody who is professional and independent, then give us a shout or go onto our website, and you'll see all the suite of services we provide there for people 7 days a week. Thanks again for listening, and looking forward to talking to you again next month. And as I said at the start of the show, if you have any questions that you might want answered by our counsellors and therapists, whether it's about yourself or maybe your kids or people you know or family, etc., just give us a quick email. Go onto the website and you can contact us through that, and we will get our counsellors and therapists to look at your question and hopefully give some insights and tips about addressing those questions in the next show. So listen, thanks a million, and thanks again to Nicola and Michelle, and looking forward to talking to you next month. Okay, don't forget, keep your head up.